Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's 1Million by 1 Million Strategy Roundtable for Entrepreneurs. 1M by 1M, as you know, is the first and only global virtual accelerator for technology startups in the world. Our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs help them reach $1 million in annual revenue and beyond. In support of that mission, we do these roundtables week after week after week. This is the 528th session. And every single recording of our sessions are available on the YouTube channel 1M1M Roundtables. On Twitter, we're at 1M by 1M and that's Romana. Today's hashtag is 1M1M. These are the call-in numbers. You can also activate your computer audio to call in when we're ready. We have some scheduled programming first. We are going to start today's session with a conversation with Alok Nandan, founding general partner of First Raise Venture Partners. Alok, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Shramana. Great to be back. Thanks for having me.
You have been here with your previous firm, Emergent Partners, yes?
Yes.
So what's new? Looks like a lot of new things have happened to you.
Yeah. So let me just quickly update. So COVID, as you know, accelerated a lot of things. And what happened was I was coming on to 4 years with my previous firm. I had joined them. Ankur, the managing partner there, started the firm and I joined him. And I was noodling of starting my own firm, over the past couple of years. And I'll talk about why. But COVID just accelerated it. So late last year, I started First Raise Venture Partners. We were actually very busy last 6 months. We did 10 investments. And, from our first fund 1 is fully deployed. Now, first check, now we are raising fund 2 and we are starting to invest out of fund 2 starting in this summer. Yeah.
And what are catch us up on the vital statistics of the new fund? What size,
Sure.
What's fund 1, what's fund 2 going to be, and what is the investment thesis?
Yeah, sure. So fund 1 was a $20 million vehicle. We were investing in B2B software companies with a specific focus on cloud infrastructure and data infrastructure. So more infrastructure layer than application layer. And we've done 10 investments. A median check size is $750K. The second fund, we are targeting to be a $50 million fund. We have raised more than 60% of that already. And we would do about 20 or so investments with a typical check size median of 1 million with reserves of similar amounts of follow on in Series A. So that's, yeah.
So talk about what you want to see before you're willing to write $1 million check.
Yeah, no, that's a very good question.
It's like the $1 million question in the quarters that we travel.
Yeah. So, I can go. There are certain filters by which we look for entrepreneurs, right? Now, at the seed stage, a lot of data and metrics is actually not available. Like you don't know much about revenue. You can't talk to customers because sometimes startups may not already have paying customers. Right. So what you're really betting on is actually the founders or the founding team and the category in which they are playing. Right. So I'll talk about both of them. In terms of the founders, we look for founders who have demonstrated resilience and self-awareness. Why? Because a journey of a startup is a lot of it is about internal battles and not just external battles. A typical journey takes 7 to 8 years, if not longer. So if the founder or the founding team has demonstrated that resilience and that self-awareness that they can weather the ups and downs and stay, keep equanimity and keep going and push through everything that life throws at them, that is something we actively look for. And there are certain ways in which you can look for those signals in what they have done in their past lives, what kind of trajectory they are in their past careers and so on, right? So that's number one on the founding team. Secondly, on the category or the space, one of the areas that I'm, as you probably know, AI is, everywhere and it's going to become pervasive, in the next 10 years, just like mobile. Nobody talks about mobile today. In 2010, everything was about mobile, I don't know if you recall that, but now, everybody's talking about AI, right? In 10 years, nobody's going to talk about AI because AI is going to be pervasive. It's going to be in every workflow, every tool, every product, right? Now, we are not investing in AI per se from the new fund. Our thesis is around more of picks and shovels for AI. So tools, developer tools, infrastructure tools, API tools, cybersecurity tools, data infra. So anything that enables somebody to build better AI, faster AI, cheaper AI, that is something we are, actively looking for. So those are the categories, and within that, I can unpack it, right, around data, around sort of the cloud migration, and then around cybersecurity and privacy. Those are sort of big themes that we look for within this, sort of picks and shovels play. Yeah.
So to net out the answer to my question, what are you looking for? You're really looking for a founder that you feel good about.
Yeah, I mean, it is, unfortunately, it is a little subjective because at the seed stage, you don't have that much metrics, right, to go after. At Series A and beyond, you have numbers you can look at. At seed stage, you don't have numbers. So a lot of times it is a qualitative bet, less so of a quantitative bet. And the qualitative bet is around the founding team's domain expertise and their sort of, ability to execute on and going after hard problems. And some of that is demonstrated by their past experience.
So does that translate into that you are looking for serial entrepreneurs only?
Not necessary. See, first-time founders, if they have worked in other startups which are fast-growing, or even if they have been in other companies where they have demonstrated that they took on a big problem and solved it, that is something we actively look for. Obviously, serial entrepreneurs would be great too, but that's not the only criteria for us, right? There are other ways in which a founder can demonstrate that they have this ability to venture out and do something, right? It doesn't have to be their own company. It could be part of some other startup or some other bigger company as well.
So let's double click down on the 10 investments that you've made already with this picks and shovels investment thesis, and give us some examples of what you have invested in, why you've invested in those, and what are the specifics of, was this a first-time founder, was it a serial entrepreneur? Let's take some case studies.
Yeah, sure. I can talk about one that I'm excited about. They are still a little bit, they're not fully public yet, so I can't talk about all the things, but I can give the contours. So this is a founder. There's actually two founders. They both are in the Valley. They both have 20 plus years of experience in the networking space. They've worked in companies like Cisco, Juniper, and so on. One of the founders, the CEO, he was in another venture-backed company. He was the VP of engineering there. And the other founder was in another venture-backed company. He was a founding engineer there. So they're both engineers. The problem they are going after is COVID has accelerated this work from home or remote work. And what has happened is a lot of venture capital dollars have gone into, what is the next, way of collaboration, whether it's next Slack, next whiteboarding tool, and so on. But there is another section of the team, which is the engineering team and the DevOps team, which also are working from home. And the kind of work they do is actually become 10 times harder in this remote environment. I'll give you an example. When a software is deployed in the cloud so that people can access it, it requires you to upload a bunch of data, right? Now, if you're working from home, your internet bandwidth is not as fast as when you're working from the office, right? Typically, the speed of internet at home is much slower. Now, if I'm trying to upload a lot of data from my home, it's going to take forever. My job is 10 times harder. So this, and the second thing is these, if you're familiar with the SolarWinds attack, right? It was a cybersecurity attack, right? That is going after this exact workflow of DevOps tools accessing data and code in the cloud when you're uploading your software so everyone can access,
Yeah.
known as a supply chain attack, right? And so what this company is doing is building a cloud native version of what is known as privileged access management, or a PAM. So it's a cloud native PAM, right? And there are other public companies. There's a company called CyberArk. There's another company that recently was acquired by Thoma Bravo for $1 billion. It's a company called Tariy.at. So they are previous generation PAM tools. There is no cloud native PAM tool that exists in the market today, especially that works in this remote work environment where every engineer, every DevOps engineer is working from home and trying to just access these cloud resources in a secure manner and a performant manner, right? So that's an example of a picks and shovels. It's a cybersecurity and a DevOps tool. It is enabling people to work in a performant and secure way from wherever they are working in a remote environment. And it is, there is some AI also inside it, but that's still being built out, right? So that's in a, sort of a broad contour of the investment, one of the investments. Yeah.
Great. Very good. Very good example of what you define picks and shovels by. Do you want to do another use case like that?
There's another one. It's not yet public, but I can again give a contour of it. Actually, let me take another one which is public. So this is a company called Blitz.io with a double Z. This is there are two founders. One of them is a technical founder. He was in another venture funded company. He was the director of engineering there. The CEO, she was in another venture founded company that went public, and then she was in SAP's accelerator program. And so the problem they are going after is again around this data replication. So a lot of data today, even in a Fortune 500, sits on-prem, on on-prem servers, on-prem databases. Cloud is a mega trend. Everyone is moving to the cloud. But to move petabytes of data from an on-prem database like an Oracle database or a SQL Server to a cloud database or a warehouse like a Snowflake or a Databricks, it takes a long time. I mean, the data replication, every time something changes, you don't want to copy the whole database over to the cloud. You only want to copy the changes over, right? Now, copying the delta changes of the data that's coming in is very hard. It's a very hard computer science problem. That is what these guys are going after, which is how do you incrementally keep two databases in sync, where one database is sitting in on-prem in some data center in a company's office, and the other database is sitting in the cloud, whether it is Amazon or Azure or Google or what have you, right? How do you keep these two sync in a performant and a cost-effective way? So that is the problem they are solving. Again, it is data infrastructure. It is sort of there is no fancy AI in it. There's no very little UI, but the core of the innovation is how do you do this data replication between on-prem to cloud or between cloud to cloud in a cost-effective and performant manner. Yeah.
Very good. Very good. Alok, do you have an analysis of the infrastructure space that you're investing in, where you have identified open problems that you want to invest in that you haven't yet found an entrepreneur team to invest
Yeah,
into?
absolutely. I can tell you a lot of them. So again, I'm passionate about data infrastructure. I mean, as you probably know, Snowflake is one of the largest IPOs in the history of the US, right? The space, within data infrastructure space, I'll give you a couple of examples. One is something called data lineage, right? What is data lineage, right? So today, when you create a customer account, let's say you're a Uber customer, right? You have an account with Uber. Now that account information about you with Uber is not just sitting in one database. It is replicated across 20, 30 databases. Jeff Bezos talked about this, what is known as specialized databases for specialized use cases, right, in his 2019 annual letter. And what has happened in the enterprise today is there is now a fragmentation of this databases. So now there is a graph database, there is a key value database, there is a document database, there is a relational database, and on and on and on. And so there's like literally hundreds of different types of databases, right? Now, data lineage is how do you track when somebody makes a change within one, right? So this is different from Blitz. Blitz is more about on-prem to cloud or cloud to cloud. This is within on-prem also, right? When you make a change, let's say Shramana updates her phone number in your Uber account, right? It's quite possible, right? How does that change get traced through all these other databases that are sitting in the Uber's infrastructure, right? That is a hard problem. It is not solved. There are a couple of companies. There's a company called Manta, M-A-N-T-A. It was just recently funded by Bessemer. So, but I'm actively looking for companies like that. If there is a company like that, I would love to talk to them. So that's an example. Again, I can go on and on. In the data infra, there's another one in cybersecurity as well. Again, talking about data security, right? After SolarWinds, right? I don't know how much you know about the SolarWinds supply chain attack, right? Basically, many prominent CISOs have said, if you're an organization, just assume that you have been breached. Assume that the attacker is in your organization. Now, so the first line of defense is breached. Now, what is the second line of defense? Typically, the second line of defense is identity. So you continuously authorize whoever is trying to access the data. Assume that there are bad actors already in your organization, right? Now, how do you make sure what else can you do? So the next step is identity-based security, right? Which is anybody who's trying to access your data, whether it is customer data or internal data, right? How do you make sure that they have the authority to access that data, right? And they are doing it from they're not doing it from some personal laptop, right? Which is quite possible in a remote work environment. I'm just sitting at home. I try to get some work done from my personal laptop, right? So how do you make sure that in this remote work environment, data access and data governance is followed in the post where the attackers could already be inside your organization, right? There's a term for this. It's known as insider threat, right? And it's a very well-known term. But that's another example of us looking. I'm actively looking for solutions for this insider threat attacks.
Okay. Very good. Very good. All this is very helpful to make entrepreneurs out there aware of what open problems are being sought by investors. Great.
Yep.
Now, switching a little bit to a different line of questioning, what are you thinking in terms of how you want to play this fund? Are you looking for unicorns? Are you looking for strategic early exits? What's the analysis?
Yeah, I mean, see, when we come in, right, it's two guys in a garage most of the times, or a girl or a guy in the garage, right? It is very hard to predict if any of them will become a unicorn, right? So we can't base our strategy on companies becoming unicorns, right? We cannot, right? And given our fund size, right, with the number of bets we make, even if they get acquired, if they are in a good space, they're a good team, if they acquired for 100 million or so, that is a decent return for us, and if, so our strategy, our fund strategy does not, we are not dependent on any of our companies becoming a unicorn. Let me put it that way, right? So, even if none of our companies become unicorns, we will still do fine because of our fund size and our fund strategy. Right. And that is a conscious decision, right? There's others. And in B2B space, right? And that's another thing I'll just, for the audience, help them understand, right? In B2C is a very hits driven business. It's like movie business, right? It's hit. You get a Facebook or you get a Snapchat. Otherwise, most of the rest go to zero. B2B is not like that. And B2B software is absolutely not like that, right? Where there's a lot of exits that happen in the sub $100 to $200 million exit, right? And that
exits are sub $50 million exits in B2B.
So 50 to 100. I mean, depends, right? If it is strategic, then it goes to like 70, 80, or 100. I mean, sometimes in cybersecurity, in data infra, in networking, I mean, 200, 250 happens quite a lot. Right, if it is very strategic. But yes, you're right that most of these are sub whatever $200 million majority, right? And so that is something that is sort of consciously baked into our strategy, that we don't need to rely on unicorns for us to return our fund, if that helps. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Now, what is your assessment to make money as an investor in a, let's say, $50 to $100 million exit bracket? What is the maximum amount of money that you want to put into a company as a full amount of capital, not just your side of the check? Maybe there are other syndicates and so on. But what is the total amount of capital that you recommend?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Yeah, no, that's a good question. See, anytime if a company raises more than 10 million total in the lifetime of the company, then to get an exit that is a 50 to 100 is hard, right? Because any investor who comes in with whatever check size in that 10 million, right, they would want at least a 5 to 10x, right? And so it becomes really hard to, so I would say if the going in assumption is you're going to get a 50 to 100 million exit, do not raise more than 7 to 8 million that in the lifetime of the company, right? Ideally, the lesser the better, but obviously less is more challenging because then you can't execute on stuff. So I would say the optimal amount is you raise like 4 to 5 million. You get your product in the market, get to customers, get to million ARR. If you are a strategic fit for somebody, I think somebody will buy you, right? In the 30, 40, 50 million, right? I think that's if that is the entrepreneur's goal, right, then that is, I think, a very sound strategy.
Yeah. And I think, given the number of problems out there that are actually not necessarily these very large problems, but they need to be solved,
Yes.
This is not a bad strategy. We always, in deciding on what is the right strategy for an entrepreneur's fundraising / exit, we often take this into consideration, is that, it's okay to also play a different game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you also, this is sort of a little bit of education for the entrepreneurs, right? A lot of first-time entrepreneurs, they don't even ask a VC, what is your fund size?
Yes.
That is an absolute must-have. They should know, because there is a saying in VC land, right? If you tell me your fund size, I will tell you your strategy.
Right.
So the fund size is the strategy of the VC fund, right? And as a consequence, if I'm an entrepreneur, if I'm talking to somebody which has a $200 million fund, they will look at it to you very differently from a VC who has a $25 million fund, right? And that is
we stress a lot. We stress investor entrepreneur fit a lot, and fund size is very much a consideration that we take into account in deciding where one should play. And I've talked to a lot of, as you know, we talk to investors all the time. Some investors with smaller fund sizes exit into Series A or Series B, which is a fine fund strategy as well.
Yeah, and that is happening more and more. So that's another great point, right? It doesn't need to be that the company needs to sell fully outright, right? There are now liquidity options, both for individual founders to get some liquidity out, or for, there are all these now marketplaces, right? Like equities, and I mean, for somewhat late stage, but also that is moving sooner and sooner. And to your point, right, that even at Series B stage, sometimes there are certain investors which are okay to sell their positions to other later stage investors, right? So that is also possible, right? And if you as a founder, initially you thought, oh, I will get to Series B, I'll see if I can exit out. And then you see, oh, this is a much bigger market. Then you need to get a different set of investors, right, who can take you from 100 to 1 billion, right? And that's totally fair game, right? So I think that, yeah.
Very good, very interesting conversation. Alok, I wish you all the best with first raise, and I'm sure we'll have a chance to cross paths again soon.
Thank you, Shamana. Thanks for having me. Yep.
Bye. Right. Take care.
Bye.
Folks, we're going to switch to the entrepreneur pitch session next. Just a quick expectation setting. This is a safe working session. We are completely on your side. We have absolutely no other agenda but to work with you closely and help you accelerate. So if you disagree with the feedback you're going to get from me here today, that's okay. It's your venture. You play your hand however you want to. My job is to give you authentic feedback, authentic, actionable feedback. So that's what I will do, and you will do whatever you decide is right for you. Andres Sigcha from Phoenix, Arizona. Andres, please unmute your line and tell us what you're working on.
Good morning, everybody. Let me actually show my face too. There I am. Thank you
I like
so
your
much.
photo, and you put a photo with a cactus in the background. That's interesting.
Thank you. Well, it had to be representative of the desert, right? So at least
where you come
something.
from. Yes.
Well, I am not from Phoenix. I'm actually originally from Ecuador in South America.
Okay.
But been in the States for 14 years, and Phoenix is actually our home now. Long story, we have a daughter that was born here, and we have family, so Phoenix is home for now.
Good. And is everybody okay in Ecuador and your family?
Yes, it's been like any underdeveloped country, it's been difficult. Lack of vaccination, just the concentration of people in certain areas, as you well know, like larger, countries. So it's been difficult. Thankfully, we haven't been affected directly. I mean, family-wise, but we known a lot of people that, from close friends that have died and relatives.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I guess, that happens everywhere, but the government is sometimes not on the side of people, but trying to take advantage of the situation. So it's unfortunate, but hopefully things gonna get better soon.
How do you pronounce this name of the company? Tariy?
Yes, Tariy. And it actually means gathering in Quechua, which is the language of the Incas.
Yeah. Okay. Very nice. Nice name.
So, well, I wanted to have an
name is people won't know how to pronounce. I mean, how to spell it.
I know that's a difficult part. So, like somebody mentions, like maybe you should actually put kind of hyphenate and certain things, but really what we're trying to do is, and the actual meaning of Tariy is going back to the ways that things were, or the things that were intended. And especially, that's what we're trying to do is focusing on meeting efficiency, and that's the goal.
All right, so let's talk about what is it specifically, double click.
Yes, perfect. So, I obviously follow the, guidelines and the suggestions that we needed to be. Our pitch is much larger, but really our focus is enterprise, internal collaboration. So the interview with the investor was actually very informative and great to kind of just understand from that investor point what are views and perspectives. But really the problem is meetings are the #1 contributor to employee burnout and workplace inefficiency. There is so much data behind it. 71% of meetings are unproductive. 92% of people daydream or do other activities while in meetings. And the largest element is that 65% of workers mentioned that meetings keep them from working. So there is a large issue, and it's not how to make meetings better, is actually the culture of meetings, and that needs to be changed. We deliver actionable insights on how to improve and eliminate inefficient meetings by measuring their effectiveness, and we track how much time and money is spent on them. Our go-to-market strategy is we're a product-led growth company, marketing intensive, self-service. Ideally, that's where the sales cycle shorten, where a user tests it, they like it, they buy it. They don't like it, move on. Our current target customer in the first phase is a SMB in the tech and finance sector, which will allow us just develop use cases, and we are going in the second phase. One, all that feedback is reiterated, we go to enterprise directly. Target personas in small and medium businesses, the owner and finance directors, and in enterprise, the CFO, and everybody that focuses on people development and employee well-being, which is Chief People Officer and CHO. Customer validation. So far, we have 2 paid beta customers, and as I explained before, our goal with the beta is not testing the technology. We know that it works. Is actually creating a use case. As of right now, there is no studies done on a correlation of meeting reduction with productivity increase or happier employers. So that's what we're trying to really do. We have actually one of our advisors is his name is Dr. Joe Allen, and he is a meeting scientist, and he's actually one of the world's most renowned researchers in this spectrum. And obviously, we're focusing on organizational behavior as well. As I mentioned, 2 use cases, correlation of meeting reduction to productivity increase. I should have put I think that was this number, 8 to 20,000 a month is what is the average size deal. We don't have revenue yet because we haven't started our beta, and we have two LOIs from 2 Fortune 500 customers so far.
So Andres, let's stay on the slide for a moment and let me understand exactly where you are. So you have 2 paid betas that will pay you after you have proved your value proposition, yes? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Actually, the process is this, because these customers are close to us. They are local, actually. So they have had some delays. The first quarter just closed, and everything has kind of been happening. So we told them to just let us know whenever they are completely ready, and then whenever we issue, the PO and everything. I have been in a part of another startup where we asked the customer for payment previous, and we were not able to deliver, and then we had to give back money. And I have had that experience, and I don't want to face it. I want to make sure that everything is done.
But are you implementing your technology in these 2 customer cases?
Yes.
So what is the use case specifically? How are you going in and doing what you propose to do there? Who is the buyer, and what exactly is the workflow?
Yes, certainly. So I actually, to kind of give you a little explanation on what we do, is we are a plugin to Zoom and Microsoft Teams. Our software and our platform runs on the background. We provide an understanding of the full spectrum of meetings, best practices, really topics that are being discussed, and understanding in depth of how much time and money is spent on meetings. And then we actually rate and score every single meeting. And according to that rating, we provide actionable insights on each meeting. If there's a recurring meeting and the meeting is not productive, the system suggests that meeting should be reduced in quantity, or should be reduced in time, or invite less people. So that's what we're trying to do. But again, as I mentioned, that solution, we know it has worked. We have worked with some other smaller customers, but it is actually having those results and being able to understand how the software is actually helping in a larger scale. Because if we have done some studies, and actually we can deliver up to 20% less meetings, up to 22% increase of productivity, and up to 15% decrease of attrition rate. So those are what we're trying to.
This is based on what heuristics? Well, give me an example of the heuristics that are determining these scoring algorithms.
The scoring on the meeting score?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's actually everything. Right now there is a lot of platforms that focus on meeting preparation, and meeting preparation is a completely, there is really a gap in between preparation to execution. Is like studying for a test. You study something, that doesn't mean that you're going to ace the test. So the same thing with meetings. We are not only focusing on preparation, but we're measuring preparation, measuring execution, and then actually getting a user feedback if the meeting was productive. So it involves a lot of qualitatives, and we're actually quantifying that and providing a real meeting score. So that enables the company or the department or the whole organization to understand if that meeting was productive or not. But as you well know, our algorithm needs to be, the more is used, the better it understands, the more is trained, and obviously the better suggestions it provides.
Okay, let's keep going. I'll give you some more feedback on how to pitch this a little bit later, but let's keep going.
The market size, the productivity management software is $103 billion, and employee corporate wellness is $66 billion. Now, because really what we're trying to do is not just, we're not becoming a platform for video conferencing. We are just utilizing the largest video conferencing platforms. It is almost difficult to kind of capture our TAM, but assuming that, well, not assuming, but actually data shows that Zoom has 300 million users and over 75,000 companies, and Microsoft Teams has 115 million users and over 500,000 companies. So that it will be ideally where the market goes in there.
So here's one thing that you need to change in the slides. What you have in the top two numbers, the 103 billion and the 66 billion, are top-down TAM numbers, which investors tend to ignore. When we are evaluating how a company is going to move in the market, these numbers tend to not be relevant. What is relevant is more the bottom numbers. If you're going after the Zoom customer base, or if you're going after the Microsoft Teams customer base, and you are going after B2B, so these 75,000 companies using Zoom and the 500,000 companies using Microsoft Teams is much more relevant. So what you need to do is a bottom-up TAM analysis. So if, let's say, your average deal size is $10,000 times 75,000 companies, that's the Zoom TAM. 500,000 companies times $10,000 is the Microsoft Teams TAM. That bottom-up TAM analysis is far more interesting and relevant than what you are, thinking about by way of, top-down. Top-down is irrelevant.
Okay, understood. And really, the questions is, and I guess that's where. And please, I love feedback. That's why I'm putting myself in here, so you can be as honest as you desire. But is it our value proposition clear? Do you suggest an organic growth of fast execution and potential valuation? And the reason I'm asking this is that we already have come across couple investors. I believe that we can fund it organically and grow, but because of the importance and just the topic of meetings is such a relevant topic, I feel that execution is key for us to really be able to cap the market. So there is, some kind of discrepancy on that point.
So I think what will happen if you start a funding round at this stage of your company on this pitch or on this situation, you're going to get stuck in due diligence. And this is why you're going to get stuck in due diligence. You have talked about use cases, right? If I'm doing due diligence on your company, what I'm looking for is use cases that clearly give me insights into how a meeting is scored, how that translates into savings. And unless I get a good understanding of what are the heuristics that are driving those use cases and the ROI, I would hesitate to invest in this company because it's not really clear to me if this works. So one of the questions that we, in technical due diligence, that you're going to trip on here is, does it really work? And AI investing is notorious for this question to be a tripping factor. And there are lots of AI companies out there, so everybody who's listening to this conversation should make note of the fact, how do you answer the due diligence question, does your AI actually work? So the only way you can do that actually is by showing a bunch of beta customers where you can fully show the life cycle of your product, that yes, the product was brought in, and then the product ran for this long, and it produced these results, and this is the ROI. So if I were you, and especially you're saying that you can fund this to that degree, I would generate a bunch of paying customers, and most importantly, a bunch of ROI use cases. And with that, I'm pretty sure you can raise money. The core value proposition at a 30,000-foot level, the way you started this conversation, giving you control of your day, one meeting at a time, by the way, that's not your value proposition. Your value proposition is to the, to the CFO maybe. I have to understand more of your sales cycle, exactly how you go into the company and how you get taken seriously. Who is the economic buyer? Who is the technical decision maker, etc. But your value proposition is actually saving time and money that are spent on meetings. That's really your tagline here. And then you're going to need to justify that tagline with use cases and ROI to pass due diligence. So even if you have investor interest at the moment, I would not engage with investors because you're going to get tripped in due diligence.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Perfect.
So I think for a while, I would say just go slowly and get the customers and get the use cases, get the ROI analysis done. And then, if you need help with financing, we will help you with financing. But this is the way I would play your hand right now.
Okay. It's a little, obviously, this is a setting that, it kind of makes to enable us to really put the slide in a very kind of specific way. And I feel that, I didn't communicate kind of really where the whole value proposition, because although one of the big elements for us is increased productivity and is savings on company, is we are actually focusing on human capital rather than just productivity on the company. The byproduct of employee well-being is productivity. So meetings for us is just kind of the first spectrum into enabling that, as per the data that shows that
that one I think is your positioning decision. If you are going into companies, if the buyer is the chief people officer and not the chief financial officer, this positioning may work. So you have to decide. You have given me mixed signals.
Okay.
And if I'm an investor, I don't want mixed signals. I want clarity on exactly how this company is going to grow. Is this a HR tool being bought by the chief people officer's organization, or is this a financial tool to understand how money is being spent? If your economic buyer is the chief people officer, then okay, your tagline may work.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So all of these clarifications I would get done, the positioning clarification, the use case clarification, the sales process clarification. We have very systematic ways in which we set up sales processes in our program. And if you set your sales process up according to this principle, according to the principle of the 1 million by 1 million methodology, you will clear due diligence. but you're going to need to go through that exercise and set yourself upright. Okay?
All right.
All right, very good. Good. I like your attitude. I like your openness to feedback, and I like your willingness to learn. So good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
You're most welcome. All right, Aidan Stephen from Los Angeles, California. YapPolitics. Aidan, please unmute your line.
Hi, Sramana.
How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. Tell me what you're doing.
Amazing. So, I am currently sitting in Los Angeles, California, about to pitch this idea to you. YapPolitics is actually a mobile debate platform. And, it is all about understanding the challenges that students like me face in the political climate nowadays. And, obviously we've seen in the news recently everything that's going on with the social medias and, the political news outlets. There's this tangible partisanship and polarization that we feel. And, students like me are deterred from even participating in these political conversations. And, I know it's a cliche, but we really are the future leaders of America. And so we kind of need a new online outlet to really have structured political conversation, especially what we like to call returning civility back to politics. And that's what you're kind of going to see here with YapPolitics.
Okay.
So, obviously we touched on this before, but this political climate nowadays, I would argue, is the most polarized in the entire history of America. And what you're essentially looking at, what you're essentially looking at is a struggle between the left and right, an idea that because you're of a different affiliation, I can't have a conversation with you. But what people don't understand is we have a shared humanity. We're brothers, we're sisters, we're mothers, we're daughters before we're Republican, Democrat. And, YapPolitics has identified these types of problems. The fact that on social media, people are hiding behind an alias, a little tag name, user 96051. And these tag names are, giving users this ability to kind of spread false information and hate speech and all these different problems that the social medias are struggling to deal with simply because people can't interact face to face. Look what we're doing right now. You understand who I am. You understand that I'm, a 17-year-old kid trying to initiate one of the biggest problems in our society and kind of, that upheaval. And so when we can understand that we have this shared humanity, there's an entire different perspective when you're debating, when you have political discourse that social media just isn't providing to their users.
So what about Clubhouse? How do you read Clubhouse?
100%. So I look at Clubhouse as a fantastic way, obviously for the venture capital community and people who are looking for a very simple type of communication, and that makes sense, right? You're in a room, you have audio features only, you understand that beginning aspect, right? You hear the voice, you get those characteristics, and you understand that this is a person, not an AI or technology, kind of like what social media is. But there's a next step. The fact that you can see someone's face is detrimental to what goes on in our political conversations. And that's why primarily you never see political debates, especially for campaigns, etc., discussions with, college organization groups. They never happen, kind of what we're doing right now. It's always in person over a cup of coffee. Ironically, the places you would consider apolitical spaces, those are the places where conversations are the most populous, simply because you understand who you're talking about. It's a very relaxed environment, and you understand that there's that shared humanity. So Clubhouse is fantastic, but that's kind of why you don't see political debate happening so much. It's more for interacting with new people, venture capitalists, and that's kind of the big communities on Clubhouse right now.
Okay.
So like I said, we're creating a mobile application where students can essentially have the necessary feature set to interact with exclusively their demographic. Now that this comes in this is kind of multifaceted. You will have rooms, kind of like Clubhouse, where you can have facilitated political discussion. You can kind of think of it as like a Facebook group or a GroupMe chat. our primary initial demographic is high school and college political clubs on campuses. And so you'll kind of see numbers in a second about those, but they're very, very vested in issue-based politics and partisan and affiliation-based politics. And so we actually have 55 beta testing organizations, which roughly equates to about 2,500 beta testers from our initial launch in about 2 weeks, May 16th. And these organizations come on, they create a room called, University of Alabama Democrats. And all their students join these group chats, and they have a number of feature sets that allow them to have the discussion we're kind of talking about. For instance, the live debates. It's a way for you to sit down to initiate a 3 to 5 minute conversation with set intervals for each user to debate on political topics that we as the YapPolitics team provide to you. And at the end of the debate, once you initiate the software and it ends, the rest of the Yap Room members can actually vote on who was more persuasive in changing their political perspective. And that's something that our users have told us is revolutionary. The fact that we can come together, we can have set intervals for speaking. We're bringing topics, for instance, was Trump's ban from Twitter outrageous or outdated? And so we're kind of phrasing the question in a way where there is no partisanship, there is no bias to an affiliation. We're keeping it very open for our users. And we're not, we're not staying away from, the hot topics. We want controversial topics that our users are really going to debate with. And they can provide their own topics, but we give them a list that updates with the current events.
So can you talk about the usage flow, and maybe you have a slide on this, where, in a traditional debate setting, you have a moderator and you have a bunch of panelists. Are you following that same framework?
Correct. So how it essentially works is, for instance, a college organization has what we call an executive board. So they have their president, their vice president. Now, these people actually get the title of facilitator in these chats. We don't call them moderators, we call them facilitators. And their job is to facilitate the discussion. They have a number of features specifically for them that allow them to stop emotional conversation from happening. So for instance, in the group chat, they have what we call pre-written messages. These messages are grouped by categories: anti-bias, anti-racist sentiment, false information, knowingful spread of misinformation. And we have messages specifically crafted so when these conversations get out of hand, these facilitators can click on that pre-written message, it'll go straight to the chat, and will guide our users back on the correct path, the civil debate path. Same with our live debates. So one of the facilitators will be present in every single live debate, whoever's online, and they will actually be the facilitator for the discussion. But in essence, because there is structure and the technology transitions from user to user, the facilitator position isn't so necessary to keep the civility in the discussion.
Okay.
So you can. So in terms, like I said, of our initial demographic, we're very much focused on students. And what I want to kind of propose to you is there's a stereotype in our society that students are apathetic towards politics. And I understand how that comes about. When you think of a 16-year-old kid, you probably think of them sitting in front of a computer and playing video games. But in essence, the reason why our society hasn't experienced any major young person social media type of platform that's specifically catered toward politics is exactly because of that notion. And that's why me, for sure, is sitting on this type of idea that has so much potential because of this stereotype. And so people aren't willing to invest their time into students who they believe aren't interested in politics. But the numbers you're seeing here are arguing the exact opposite. Across 497 institutions in America, there are 93,000 political clubs, 93,000, and each one ranges from about 15 to 300 members. It's massive. The groups are massive. And what you're seeing here as well is, debating extracurriculars. There are over 40,000 students in my, state alone, California, that are participating in debate extracurriculars. So your Model UNs, your debate clubs. And when you look at this demographic, it's crazy to me to think that nobody's ever tapped into this, especially for political conversation. These people are the future leaders of America. These people are future voters. And these people are very, very... When you look at the election this year from 2016 to 2020, there was a 65% increase in Gen Z voting. It's massive. And that's what we need to understand, that this is so much potential, especially for our initial demographic, before we even start diversifying and expanding our initial market, that these organizations are so willing to engage with a platform like this because they're out of alternatives, and they're super excited about politics because that's their secondhand nature at this point. Now, if you kind of look, obviously, if you look at the competitive landscape right now, this is completely based off of my interaction with over 150 college organizations. Now, you're kind of looking at the competitive landscape of what these organizations use for their political discussion. And so obviously you have your user outlets and your social media, but you don't really see so much of the, GroupMe in that sense. You're looking at communications app like WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, Zoom meetings, and WebEx, like we're kind of doing right now. But none of these, none of these outlets are specifically crafted for debate. And so, for instance, when you look at social media, first of all, they're very polarized and partisan. And again, you're hiding behind an alias. You're not interacting with people face to face. When you look at your news outlets, they're also very partisan and polarized. Obviously, you have your Fox News and CNNs of the world. You have your social mission projects, which, by the way, is a very, very tight-knit community that I've had the privilege of kind of interacting. And you'll see stuff like a Junior State of America, All Sides, which is a non-biased media outlet, Listen First project, which serves to amplify these social missions. But these organizations aren't facilitating discussions. They're providing resources to our users, and that's why a lot of the strategic partnerships that we've executed recently are from these. And then you have your communication apps, which is the primary outlet. You're looking at Zoom, WhatsApp, and GroupMe to interact, to text, to talk about issues that pop into your head. But again, there is no space where we can sit down, interact with a wide variety of students from diverse affiliations, make sure we're venturing out of what I like to call your echo chamber, which is kind of that same group that's echoing the beliefs that you believe, and kind of venture out and interact with new demographics. And that's really what YapPolitics has identified as a niche in this market. And that's why you kind of see us there as the nonpartisan user-to-user app.
Okay.
Now you're looking at the product here, and we kind of talked about this in a second, but I want to really touch on the public forum. Now, you'll notice it's very similar to your Instagram feed, and it differentiates itself in a couple of ways. When we look on Instagram, and I'm sure all the viewers and Sramana yourself, I know you have social media. How do their algorithms function? It's solely based off of content, right? The more I share, the more I like, the more I interact, those posts, those themes are going to keep regurgitating themselves. And I'm going to keep interacting with those over and over. And that's what I was touching on before, that echo chamber feel. Now, what you're looking at here is an algorithm that understands the affiliation you choose. You put it in your profile. For instance, libertarian, Republican, Democrat, progressive, moderate, etc., etc., etc. And it understands the direct opposite themes, ideas, and affiliations associated with your tag. And it will match you up with those people in your feed. So what you're looking at here is, a libertarian, a Republican popping up on this feed. You would assume that this is a Democratic user that's seeing these posts appear. And our users are driving content all day. They're posting, propositions. They're posting, things that are occurring in the news, stuff that the president is carrying out. And those ideas, based on their affiliation, are going to come into your feeds. So it's not this regurgitating content, kind of like Instagram is doing. It's matching you up, and you understand what the affiliation of the other user is. And then you can also see these Yap rooms. You can see Ignite Females of University of Alabama. This is what I was touching on before. The room specifically curated for facilitated political discussion.
Okay.
Now you're looking at the business model, and the one thing I want to stress to you is, you and the investor before were very much touching on exit strategies and how people build their business model. And one interesting thing for me was the debate between a unicorn, obviously, and a early acquisition. For us, we're very much set on an acquisition in the next 5 to 10 years. And so for us, these next phases, as you're going to see, we're not naive. We're not trying to go and scale this platform in the first couple of months like most entrepreneurs do. We very much are going to focus on nailing the platform, the logistics, the engagement, analytics, making this a sticky technology. And that's what you're seeing here in the business model. We have ways to derive revenue from the platform. However, we just raised an initial seed round that's really going to take us through that initial phase, what we call the nail it phase. And so we obviously run advertisements. I will note that we do not run any political advertisements through the platform. Obviously, Facebook and Twitter have seen problems with that. We do collect data and analytics, and we collect nothing malicious, no contact information, no credit card spending habits. But what we do collect is new analytics that are pretty much revolutionary in the space. When you think of our political climate, our social climate, everything revolves around politics. From the way I, as a Republican, interact, from the way as someone else, as a Democrat, interacts, with advertising, with retail, companies. And so I want to give you an idea. Think about Nike runs a banner ad through our platform. We can provide an analytic that shows what percentage of affiliations click through on that ad. And so I proposed to Nike, okay, you just ran a banner ad, 1,000 clicks on the ad. 70% of the clicks were Republican, 20% of the clicks were Democrat. What does that tell Nike? There's obviously something in that software, or that banner ad, sorry, that's deterring users from interacting with them. And obviously, when you don't interact with a retail ad, that's money for Nike. That's money lost. And so we can provide those analytics to kind of restructure their advertisements so they understand how to kind of include all affiliations, as well as we can actually provide to campaigns and third-party agencies the topics that young people are looking at initially. What political topics are they looking at to get educated about politics? This is massive. I think in the Barack Obama election, he spent over $100 million trying to figure out what specifically young people, which was his main target that year, what they're kind of interacting with, so he can structure his campaign around that. So two potentially massive areas. And then we also have a product, what we call the live debater certificate. And I touched on that before. We have live debates in the platform. Once a user experiences 1,000 of these lifetime debates, they can purchase a certificate. We as the company will certify them as what we call experienced mediators and experienced communicators. And obviously, everybody in the workplace is always looking for someone that can communicate themselves well. Kind of what we're doing here, being able to understand, to mediate conversations. And we sell that certificate that can be used on LinkedIn profiles, college resumes, applications, summer internships, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's kind of, you see a lot of companies nowadays building business models off of that.
Okay.
So now you're looking at our phases. We don't define our platform in time. We define it in phases and milestones. And that's what you're seeing here. As of now, we are in the nail it phase, very much focusing on allocating resources to nail this platform, to nail our product market fit, to nail the niche in the market, to nail the user interaction, the analytics, the software. And that's really going to be focusing on the younger demographics. As we get what we approximate as the next 6 months out of the seed round, we're going to be raising a Series A that is primarily going to be focused on scaling the platform in this initial demographic, right? Very much focusing on securing young people or the trend in society. That's why you see platforms like TikTok blowing up in less than a year, because young people drive content in this society. And so if we can nail that demographic, then we can move on, as you'll see, to the diversification stage, to the market expansion stage, and international implementation. And that's going to be the key for us, because if we can nail those demographics, we can make it to stage 4 and 5. And once we make it to stage 4 and 5, that's when this company becomes what we like to call the unicorn, and what you all were talking about before. Exit strategies are very simply an acquisition initial public offering. Like I said, we hope to acquire the company in the next 5 to 10 years. This is primarily the people we're looking at right now is people in the social media sector. So the large scale medias, as well as some form of media like Fox News, etc. Anything that's very political, we've kind of took a look at and structured our business for a potential acquisition.
Aidan, what do you expect your first phase, like these 250,000 serviceable market that you're outlining here, what
Correct.
level of revenue is that going to get you to? Have you modeled the revenue?
Yes. So in our user monetization plan, we essentially estimate that to that serviceable market, our share is probably going to be about 50,000 in the nail it phase. That market share will equate to about $10 million in user monetization. So to a potential advertiser, to a potential, live debater, purchaser, that's about $10 million in revenue. But again, this is not going to be in the nail it phase. We hope to implement revenue about mid next year. So we're kind of looking at, how much revenue can we derive? What we estimate our market share of that revenue will be somewhere in the 50 to 100,000 range, by the end of next year. And that's primarily going to be off, advertising agencies, these analytics, and as well as that initial,
So Aidan,
yeah.
Let me give you some feedback on a few of the fallacies of your assumptions. You are looking to raise money for a B2C business, a B2C social media business. The thumb rule in B2C social media investing is you need a bootstrapped business that has already reached millions of users virally before investors write checks. That is not what you're proposing to do. You're proposing to have 50,000 users, and you're saying that you can get to $10 million in revenue with 50,000 users, which is a big question mark in my mind. So if I'm an investor doing due diligence on it, I want to see how you're going to get there. So in that sense, your pitch doesn't work. This is not going to pass due diligence with any stretch of imagination. What will happen, in fact, if you go in with this pitch to an investor meeting, is you will not get a second meeting. Okay? So the pitch has to be completely recast. Advertisers do not invest in advertising on little platforms that have 50,000 users. That's the domain of Google AdSense at best. And the CPMs on Google AdSense is absolutely shitty. So that is not going to pass muster with your investors. So you're saying that all these certificates are going to get you revenues and so on and so forth. So, if I'm an investor doing due diligence on this thing, I would need to see exactly what your assumptions are,
Right.
How many of the 50,000 are going to pay for certificates, and how many certificates are we issuing at what price point, and what kind of revenue does that generate? So I will completely, if I'm doing due diligence on your business, the first thing I will discount is advertising as a revenue model. It's not going to work. So in that 10 million that you quoted me, whatever line item you have for advertising, take that out and see what remains. And that is something that you need to convince me that is achievable. So, I mean, that's my first set of feedback for you in terms of fundability and what will happen in due diligence to this company.
Right.
There's a whole lot of other things, but in general, the thumb rule in B2C social media investing is you need to show millions of users if you are claiming to be able to monetize with advertising as a business model and viral growth, very, very fast viral growth. And if that's not the case, then this is not a fundable company in B2C social media. But you're saying that you have other assumptions on monetization, then I would need to look into much more detail on what those other business models are, discounting advertising as a possibility, and then see how that plays out.
No, that makes sense for sure. And, when I mentioned the 10 million, I'm saying that's the market share for that 250,000 serviceable. I think I mentioned that. Like I said, for us, we could make $50,000 to $100,000 off that initial demographic. And what I'll say to you is, from what we've encountered, and I understand you actually make a very good point about, having a small initial user base. When you interact with these advertising agencies, we've sat down with them, they're not so much looking for a viral user base, because for them, when they buy 1,000 impressions, it doesn't matter if you have 1,000 users or 1 million users, because that same 1,000 people are going to be interacted. The key is understanding the engagement. And so for us on a political app, especially in this political climate, the key in the niche is that, people are interacting and making decisions off their affiliations. And so when they're interacting with advertisements on a political platform, they're more likely to click through on those ads, based on the structure of the ad. But I understand.
That argument is not going to hold. People do not sit down for conversations. Advertising agencies do not sit down for conversations on buying 1,000 impressions. They don't. They don't have the time to go sit down with every 1,000 impressions. It just doesn't, ad buying does not operate like that.
Okay. No, that makes sense. No, I completely understand. Obviously they're looking for quantity, bulk, obviously looking to, push through a bunch of things for their customers. That makes sense. And like I said, that's why we really are focusing on enterprise value for the company, growing that user value and not so much, the necessary deriving revenue for us. We're just trying to, kind of keep the platform, functioning, model out our expenses. And then from there, we'll raise rounds and kind of sustain the platform that way. But for us, an acquisition in the next 5 to 10 years is going to be based off our user value and that enterprise value. We may never even generate $1 of revenue. That's kind of the way we structured the business. But I completely understand what you're saying.
All right.
Thank you.
So, thank you. if you like what we're doing here, as you can see, I give absolutely candid feedback. And, you know, if entrepreneurs can take that feedback without being defensive and nervous, that's the way to grow. That's the way to be, you know, move forward past the roadblocks and the due diligence obstacles in the case of fundraising, motivation, etc. If you like this approach, refer 1M to other serious entrepreneurs in your network, in your friends and family who are trying to get feedback and coaching for being successful entrepreneurs. Everything resource-wise is available at 1M1M.com. There's a terrific blog. The Entrepreneur Journeys book series is available on Amazon. There are 12 case study-based books. Each has 12 to 16 case studies. These roundtables happen every week. We've done 528 roundtables. Over 150,000 people have attended. You can come as many times as you want. Our full acceleration program is 1M1M Premium, and you get full extensive methodology guidance. You get a digital curriculum. You get help for business development, introductions to potential customers, channel partners, investors, media, analysts, and you get strategy consulting, mentoring, coaching, whatever you call it, for your project in private roundtables like this one. Our self-assessment is our set of due diligence questionnaires. It's available on the website. You can access it from the homepage. Please go through the bootstrapping course. It's pinned to the top of the blog. It will take you less than an hour to go through, but we really would like you to go through this as you develop your business. 1M1M Basics will help you plug knowledge gaps as you go through the due diligence questions in the self-assessment. Anyway, all this is available on the website, what to expect from premium, what to expect from basic, FAQs, video FAQs, description of the curriculum. It is a case study-based curriculum. We have over 1,000 successful entrepreneur case studies, investor conversations, etc. Investor introduction policies on the website as well. Our methodology is bootstrap first, raise money later. You have to get to certain levels of validation before investors would engage. And that is it. In May, we are here every week. You're most welcome to come and discuss your business with me, and I'll be happy to give you my feedback. If anybody has any further questions, now is a good time to ask. You're most welcome to either use the phone line or the computer audio, or even type into the public chat. If you have questions about the program after this, you can contact Irina Patterson, irina@1M1M.com. And that is all for today. Any questions? Last call?
No, thank you for the opportunity and good luck. Stay in touch.
You're very welcome. Good luck to you. Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks for coming today.
Bye.